The story opens in quiet exhaustion, setting the tone of Claire's life, a woman who pours herself into the struggles of others yet neglects her own. Coming home late from another draining day as a school counselor, her footsteps echo softly in the dimly lit apartment. It's an ordinary night at first glance, the distant hum of the refrigerator, the faint city lights pressing through thin curtains. But ordinary dissolves the moment her gaze falls on Mark. He is sprawled across the couch in his tailored work clothes, his face softened by sleep, one hand wrapped tightly around his phone. To anyone else, it might seem mundane, even tender. Yet to Claire, that sight holds a flicker of unease, a husband who hasn't been waiting up for her, who hasn't asked about her day, who feels increasingly like a stranger in his own home. On impulse, almost mechanical, she eases the phone from his hand. It unlocks with his fingerprint, something that once was a joke between them but now feels invasive, even dangerous. What should have been another small, harmless glimpse into their shared lives becomes a descent into darkness as the screen lights up. Dozens of messages cascade across the display, the name Lily attached to each one. Heart emojis. Sweet nothings. A promise laced with venom, your wife will never know. In that instant, the warmth drains from Claire's body. The steady ground she thought she was standing on gives way, and the life she believed in begins to fracture. The discovery doesn't erupt into confrontation, not yet. Claire doesn't slam the phone down or wake Mark with accusations. Instead, she closes the device quietly, as though sealing away the truth might somehow erase it. But silence doesn't protect her, it imprisons her. She sits in the dim light, her hands trembling, her chest tightening, her gaze fixed on her husband's peaceful face. There's an almost unbearable dissonance. How can someone look so innocent while hiding something so corrosive? Her mind reels back through the past weeks and months, assembling puzzle pieces she had ignored. The sudden late-night client meetings, the new cologne she never bought him, the way his eyes seemed to slide past hers during dinner. Each memory stings sharper now, rewriting itself in the cruel context of betrayal. Yet alongside the anger, there is a numb, detached disbelief, as if her brain is refusing to accept the evidence her eyes have seen. Her training as a counselor tells her to analyze, to observe, but no amount of professional detachment can prepare her for this personal rupture. For the first time, Claire feels like she is standing outside her own marriage, looking in at two people she no longer recognizes, herself, and the man she vowed to trust forever. That night, sleep is impossible. Claire lies in bed, her body tense, her eyes fixed on the ceiling as the minutes drag into hours. Every time she closes her eyes, she sees those glowing messages, replaying like a cruel film reel in her mind. Mark's steady breathing beside her feels almost mocking, a reminder that he rests easily while she is unraveling. The betrayal is not just the possibility of infidelity, it is the violation of safety, of intimacy, of the sacred trust that formed the backbone of her marriage. She replays every cold glance, every time he dismissed her concerns, every empty promise of just work stress. The pieces click together into a horrifying pattern she can no longer ignore. And in this raw, sleepless moment, she realizes something profound. The worst kind of heartbreak doesn't come from strangers. Strangers can wound you, yes, but betrayal from them is impersonal, survivable. The true devastation comes when the wound is inflicted by the person you built your life around, the person who vowed to protect your heart, not shatter it. That is the essence of betrayal, the collapse of a world you thought was unshakable. The audience is left gripping this truth as the hook settles in. The betrayal that shatters your world isn't always from a stranger, it's from the person you trusted most. This line doesn't just summarize Claire's moment, it invites the viewer to confront their own fears about love, trust, and the fragile foundations we all depend on. Claire is the kind of woman who carries other people's pain as if it were her own. As a school counselor, she's known for her patience, her warmth, and her ability to reach kids who've been written off as lost causes. Students open up to her because she doesn't just listen, she hears them. She remembers details, encourages them with small affirmations, and offers strategies that feel practical instead of clinical. Teachers often marvel at how she can calm the angriest teenager with nothing more than her steady presence. Yet, for all her empathy and insight, Claire is blind to the fractures in her own life. She spends her days pouring energy into saving others, often at the expense of noticing her own dwindling joy. The irony is painful. She teaches young people about boundaries, self-worth, and the importance of speaking up, but when it comes to her own marriage, she remains silent. She tells herself Mark's coldness is temporary, the price of living with a man chasing corporate success. When she comes home to empty dinners, cancelled plans, or a husband too tired to talk, she soothes herself with the idea that every marriage has dry seasons. Claire's world is built on loyalty and endurance, values instilled by a mother who stayed married through storms of her own. But that very resilience has become a weakness, keeping Claire in the dark while her life quietly unravels. Claire and Mark's marriage began like a love story scripted for the movies. They met in college, two ambitious, idealistic young adults who fueled each other's dreams. They would cram for finals together in crowded libraries, reward themselves with midnight ramen runs, and take impulsive road trips with nothing but cheap gas, playlists, and the promise of a shared future. In those years, their love was afire, passionate, spontaneous, reckless in its certainty that nothing could shake them. They dreamed of a life where Claire might pursue advanced studies in psychology while Mark built his career in law. But reality has a way of dulling even the brightest flames. As Mark rose quickly in his firm, long hours and endless networking swallowed the man who once wrote her love notes on diner napkins. He became more polished, more ambitious, more inaccessible. Claire told herself his distance was noble sacrifice, that he was working for their future. She excused his absences as dedication, his irritability as exhaustion. What she failed to see was how often love is eroded not by grand betrayals, but by 1,000 small neglects. Where there used to be intimacy, there is now silence. Where there was once laughter, there is the quiet clink of silverware at dinner. And though Claire senses the void, she convinces herself it's just another season of marriage, never suspecting the true betrayal simmering beneath. The world around Claire is filled with voices that will shape her journey once the truth comes to light. Emily, her younger sister, has always been her opposite, blunt where Claire is gentle, fiery where Claire is forgiving. Emily has long suspected that Mark's devotion to his career comes at too steep a cost, but Claire has brushed off her concerns with soft smiles and practiced reassurances. Then there is Paul, Mark's law partner. Loyal, measured, and protective of the firm, Paul has noticed his colleagues' growing recklessness, late nights that aren't fully explained, whispers in. Emily has long suspected that Mark's devotion to his career comes at too steep a cost, but Claire has brushed off her concerns with soft smiles and practiced reassurances. Then there is Paul, Mark's law partner. Loyal, measured, and protective of the firm, Paul has noticed his colleagues' growing recklessness, late nights that aren't fully explained, whispers in the hallways, decisions that hint at personal compromise. He likes Claire, respects her, and carries an unspoken worry about the path Mark is carving. And then there is Lily, the most devastating piece of the puzzle. Lily is not a stranger, not a fleeting distraction. She is Claire's childhood best friend, the one who grew up alongside her, shared secrets under blanket forts, and stood as maid of honor at her wedding. To know that Lily is the other woman transforms betrayal into something monstrous, cutting Claire not just as a wife but as a friend, as a woman who trusted too deeply. Layered into this is the emotional weight of Claire's own sacrifices. She turned down graduate programs to follow Mark's opportunities, convinced that stability was the wiser path. She chose his ladder climbing over her wings, building her identity around his success. Now, with her marriage cracking and her loyalty betrayed, she is left confronting the terrifying question: if the foundation of her life has been built on sacrifice and devotion, what remains when those choices collapse? The unraveling begins in the most ordinary of settings, a neighborhood cafe where Claire and Lily have shared countless lattes and secrets since their teenage years. This time, though, the air feels thick with tension. Claire, her hands trembling beneath the table, plays her role carefully, smiling, listening, pretending that nothing is amiss. But every word she utters carries hidden meaning, subtle barbs disguised as casual questions. "So, how have you been keeping busy lately?" she asks, watching Lily stir her coffee a little too long. The response is vague, evasive, wrapped in half-smiles and nervous glances at her phone. When Claire presses lightly about Mark's latest business trip, Lily's slip comes like a dagger. "Oh, I mean, wasn't he just," before cutting herself off, cheeks flushed. In that instant, Claire doesn't need explicit confirmation. The silence speaks louder than any confession. The betrayal is painted across Lily's face, in the stammering excuses, in the way her hands won't stay still. Later, the picture sharpens when Mark claims he's traveling for a client, yet Lily conveniently disappears the same weekend. The coincidences stack like bricks around Claire, trapping her in a reality she can no longer ignore. Discovery is no longer an abstract suspicion, it is truth clawing its way into daylight. The confrontation explodes not in public, but within the walls of their home, a place Claire once thought was her sanctuary. She waits until Mark returns, suit jacket draped carelessly, tie loosened, carrying the same easy arrogance that once charmed her. Her voice is steady at first, deceptively calm as she asks, "Where were you, really?" Mark fumbles, defaulting to rehearsed excuses, late meetings, client dinners, the grind of corporate law. But Claire's piercing stare doesn't waver, and when she mentions Lily by name, his composure fractures. Denial turns to deflection, then to a hollow confession, "It didn't mean anything." The words land heavier than silence, trivializing the destruction of their marriage and her trust. To him, it's a mistake. To her, it's a double betrayal, the man she married and the woman she called sister conspiring in the shadows of her life. The fight escalates, voices raised, tears breaking through her restraint, until the home feels like a battleground of shattered illusions. What devastates Claire most isn't just the physical betrayal, it's the realization that she was living as a placeholder, a convenient shield while they indulged in stolen moments. Her marriage, her friendship, her very sense of reality all cracked open in the span of minutes. When the shouting subsides, Claire doesn't find comfort in solitude, she finds it in Emily's arms. Her younger sister, fiery and protective, becomes the anchor holding her upright when she collapses under the weight of her grief. Claire's sobs are guttural, her voice breaking as she whispers the rawest truth of her pain, "I was nothing more than their cover story." In that confession lies the depth of her humiliation, her love, her loyalty, her sacrifices reduced to camouflage for betrayal. Emily doesn't try to soothe her with empty platitudes, she simply holds her, letting her break, letting her bleed. But beneath the wreckage of her heartbreak, a seed of resolve begins to take root. Claire doesn't pack her bags that night, doesn't storm out in a blaze of finality. Instead, she makes a quieter, sharper decision, to stay not out of weakness, but out of strategy. She will no longer play the oblivious wife, but neither will she let herself be discarded without reclaiming her dignity. She will watch, gather evidence, peel back every lie until the full truth is hers. This is not surrender, it is the birth of her fight. Betrayal has hollowed her, but it has also lit a fire. And in that dimly lit room, with Emily's arms around her, Claire begins to chart the first steps of her silent war. The days that follow Claire's confrontation become a masterclass in psychological warfare. Mark, ever the polished lawyer, refuses to carry the weight of guilt openly. Instead, he reframes the narrative, painting himself as the misunderstood husband trapped in a marriage with a wife who reads too much into things. To mutual friends, he drops carefully chosen remarks, "Claire is emotional, overly sensitive, stressed from work." His gaslighting works insidiously, casting shadows of doubt even where there should be clarity. Claire feels the sting of sideways glances at dinner parties, of hushed silences when she enters the room. While Mark's reputation remains intact, hers slowly erodes, her pain recast as paranoia. Meanwhile, Lily avoids her entirely, but the betrayal doesn't fade, it metastasizes online. Claire notices cryptic posts on Lily's social media, an untouched glass of red wine captioned "waiting for you," or a photo of a hotel balcony that matches one from Mark's credit card charges. To everyone else, they're meaningless, but to Claire they're daggers, subtle reminders that Lily still lingers in Mark's world. The isolation is suffocating. Surrounded by people yet completely alone, Claire begins to doubt not just her marriage, but her own perception of reality. She asks herself in the mirror, "Am I really overreacting? Or have I simply been too blind?" The facade of stability shatters further when Claire begins to scrutinize the details Mark thought she'd never question. Balancing her counselor's precision with a wife's intuition, she combs through financial records, piecing together fragments of a life she was never invited into. There are unexplained hotel charges billed during weekends he claimed to be meeting clients. Jewelry receipts that don't match anything she owns. A pattern of luxury dinners and flights to nearby cities, always coinciding with Lily's conveniently timed escapes. The most damning discovery arrives in the form of a secret bank account one Mark has carefully concealed, siphoning money into it as if preparing for a life entirely apart from her. The weight of these revelations crushes her. Each receipt, each discrepancy is more than proof of infidelity.